So why are we even debating this issue? Here's the problem. You pick up any book, any article, any research on leadership, either online or in a bookstore, any place you go, and if you look at leadership styles, chances are that it will be singing the praises of all-inclusive, democratic, I love you all, consensus-building leadership styles. That's the way to go. Most of the literature says that, right? They say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, take a lot of people with you, build consensus, etc., etc., etc. Teamwork, collaboration, all that. And yet, you see examples like Steve Jobs. You see examples like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Lee Kuan Yew, who rocked the history of the planet by doing the exact opposite, by being autocrats. So which one is true? All the literature that you see, the popular literature on leadership, or these examples that I just shared? So Richard, let me bring you in. What do you think?
What you're really saying.
Here it comes.
Well, hang on. You are saying that these great men and women who led to such magnificent advancements were nothing more than personal dictators.
I didn't say personal dictators.
No, I'm paraphrasing.
Okay. So you're saying they are personal dictators and therefore they are bad examples.
I am saying that you are cherry picking.
Okay.
You are choosing examples that best serve your purpose.
All right.
And I am challenging you, sir, to justify your position.
Okay, here goes. So the thing is, it is a problem, right? These are two polarizing ideas. We thought, let's ask the world. Why should I fight with him and he fight with me? Why don't we ask the whole world? So we asked people a bunch of questions in 28 countries. Here are the set of questions that we asked. We said, what do great leaders have in common? That was the first question. Okay, so you asked for justification, it's coming up. We showed them profiles of some great leaders. By the way, the reason you see a ring around a certain person on my slide is because 3 years ago when we did the research, she qualified, in our opinion, as one of the great leaders. But now we have question marks, and hence, in some of my slides, you have rings because these are 2 or 3 year olds. But anyway, see, these kinds of leaders, we showed people the profiles of these people. Some are business leaders, some are societal, some are political. And we asked them, what do such great leaders have in common? And we gave them a set of behaviors or leadership attributes to choose from. You don't have to read each one of them, but just know that the pink ones were pink ones were I love you all-inclusive, democratic leadership behaviors, and the blue ones were my way or the highway, autocratic behaviors. And we asked them to choose the top 3 commonalities that such leaders have. Okay? Which ones do you think ended up on top? The blue ones or the pink ones? The pink? The blue? How many people say blue? How many people say blue? Okay, how many people say pink? Okay, so it's about a 60-40 split. Here's the data. All the blue ones ended up on the top. The whole world, at least the 28 country sample that we used, says autocratic leadership is what made these people great. Now, can you imagine when we shared this data with my colleagues, all hell broke loose at the office. Some even threatened to quit. Is this what Iclif stands for? Are we going to tell people to legitimize their bad behavior? So, well, let's check this one more time. So we asked the second question. What do business leaders today need to do in order to create breakthrough results? And guess what? All the blue ones on the top again. Whoa. Twice we asked the question, slightly differently, but we get the same answer. What does this even mean? That, the politically correct thing to say is that we need democratic inclusion. Give me a minute. Whereas deep down we have the urge to have a leader who knows exactly what to do and be autocratic. Is that what this means? We said, well, before we go to the world with this, let's check it one last time. And we asked a third question. This time we ask a yes or no question. Is a significant amount of bold, top-down, autocratic leadership needed to create breakthrough results in today's age of speed? And look at this. 75% of our people, of our database, agreed or strongly agreed. And the best part is, there was no difference and no exceptions by country. Look at this. These are all the 28 countries that we surveyed, and the green bars are the ones who said the percentage of people in each country that say agree or strongly agree. So here, Richard, is the proof that people agree that autocratic leadership is needed in today's world.
Oh, if only it were that simple. Aren't you conveniently ignoring or failing to define autocratic? Because if we go back to your questions, as I read them,
Yes.
there's nothing about autocracy in those questions. It merely says top-down leadership. Well, leadership by definition is top-down.
Uh-huh.
The other one talked about having bold, audacious ideas. That is not mutually exclusive to having a more collaborative way.
So would you agree that autocratic is when you're telling me to do something, and when a lot of people are telling me to do something, I say, no, get out of here, do what I say. Isn't that autocratic? Give you an example. By that logic, isn't Nelson Mandela autocratic? What did his country want right after he became president? They wanted revenge, right? And what did he do? He says, no way, my way or the highway. We'll give them forgiveness. Is that not autocracy?
He didn't give them forgiveness.
Reconciliation.
Well, there's a huge difference with respect between a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was not designed for punishment, but was designed to solve the wound.
Okay. What about Steve Jobs?
Go on.
No, so what do you think? Was he an autocrat?
Define autocrat.
Sorry? My way or the highway?
We know he was.
Okay. And that's what the world is saying in this data, that we need that kind of stuff.
No, I do not see that. Say that. All right. Have long-lasting energy to see their plans through without giving up amidst challenges faced.
Yeah.
That doesn't say my way or the highway.
It
Dare
does.
to be different.
Dare to be different doesn't say my way or the highway.
No, it doesn't.
Look, the world, the human, our wiring is such that we like to be loved, we like to be liked, and we like to be accepted. And a lot of good ideas are never implemented because we get feedback saying don't do it. Because we want to be loved, because we want to be liked, we let it go.
There's an element in all of this that says you have to stand your ground.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm questioning from you, where is stand your ground crossing into autocracy? Because by definition, autocracy is a bad thing, which is what you're challenging against.
It's not me challenging, it's 18,000 people in 28 countries are saying so.
Well,
yeah, so it's not just me challenging it. The issue is, what do we do with this?
Right, good, tell me. So, how many people in here like the idea of a strong leader? Let's have a, come on, yes. Exactly. Say that again a bit louder. Strong is different from autocratic. I hope you're with me.
Yes, I am. Go on.
Who else put their hand up for this definition? Yes, sir. Stand up. Come on. At this point in the day, you're all leaders. Stand up and be decisive. What does that mean? What does that mean? Decisive. That's not autocratic.
Well, an autocratic person is somebody who says, I have decided that this is right and this is wrong. Okay? And therefore, my right is righter than yours, and therefore, that's what we're going to do.
Is there a difference between the leader who does what you've just done, which arguably might be nothing more than a chief executive saying, it's my job to decide?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the CEO who's saying it's my job to decide, and I'm saying that if we are going to get to breakthrough as a company, I have a vision, you have to do what I'm saying because I have a vision and you don't.
You're nodding with him. Go on, stand up. Tell me why.
No, because I believe
Microphone. Just speak.
I believe that a leader must take position and must be firm on that position.
Did you hear what he said?
Yeah, must take a position and
No.
must stick to that position. That's what he said.
All right, let's stay. Whoever applauded, stop that now. Keep going. Anybody else?
I'm going to stay away from him so I can.
Who else believes the conditions of autocratic leadership? They're silent over. But, Rajeev,
What's that?
can you hear me?
Yes?
He says leaders need to take a decision,
Yes.
which is what your point is.
Which is exactly my point.
But you're going further than that.
Yes.
You're talking about leaders who take a position unilaterally, without discussion and without consideration, because those are the two criteria
Yeah.
that have to be added for autocracy.
So I'll give you this much. Some discussion, yes. Okay, but we don't have the luxury in the day of speed. We live in the day of breakneck speed. In today's day and age, we don't have the luxury to keep debating until the cows come home. So yes, some debate. But we have to make a decision, otherwise somebody else will take the idea, move forward. We live in the open source era of speed.
Is there not a difference, though? I mean, everybody here wants strong leaders. Oh, by the way, how many people in here want to be the victim of strong leaders?
Let me ask you a different one, okay? Let me try this.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about debate, right? Last year,
Yes.
and I think you and I spoke about this
Yes.
earlier as well. Last year, when Sundar Pichai of Google fired the engineer who said that women are inferior to men, both in terms of technology and in terms of leadership, therefore Google should not even aspire to have gender equality at the top, Sundar Pichai fired him.
Yes.
Now, he had some debate, okay? And then he made a quick decision while he was traveling that this guy be fired and removed from the premises.
And in
Public opinion in Google is divided 50-50 on this issue even now. World opinion, why should he be fired by just sharing an opinion? But Sundar Pichai did it.
that, sir, you know, an insult is about to come when somebody does that. It's a bit like saying with respect. That, sir, with respect, is not an example of autocratic leadership. That is an example simply of leadership taking a decision. Why is that autocratic?
Because if he kept discussing, and his own team was divided on this issue, if he kept discussing, he would be discussing for a very, very long time, sir.
Oh, he thinks he's winning. We haven't even begun. No! Because your argument, if taken to the nth degree, which is what you wish, is that any form of leader is going to have to take a decision. I am forcing you into the alleyway and avenue of the premise that you're suggesting, which is that autocratic leadership is preferable. And I'm saying that you are confusing autocratic leadership with simply being the chief executive and taking a decision.
It goes a bit more than that. Again, go back to the time when Mandela was in South Africa.
Right.
And there was a time when, you know, they wanted to change the name of the rugby team that won the World Cup.
The All Blacks.
Yeah. And the Sports Council of the country had made that decision that they are going to change the name. He quit a foreign delegates meeting, drove all the way to the Sports Council meeting, and persuaded them to change their mind because he says it's the wrong thing to do. When they said, this is none of your business, he says, you've now elected me your leader, now let me lead. Listen to me.
Where is that? We'll come further on to this. But let's take General Electric, GE,
Yes.
today.
Yes.
Now, I think most people in this room, I noticed the share price from GE is around about $8 a share. It's no longer in the Dow 30. It is selling off power plants. It's selling off healthcare. The CEO has just been fired, and a new CEO, Iclif, has just been appointed.
Yes.
We all know this, but
Yes.
for those that don't, it's worth rehearsing. So if he decides we're going to sell off this, we're going to sell off that, is that being autocratic?
Well, he's got to make some very tough decisions. There's no question about that.
But
I am
by
talking-
your definition, he should not have a debate about it.
Let's talk about GE, okay?
Yeah.
Now, there was a period, a long period of time when GE was very successful. I'm talking about before Immelt. All
Jack
right?
Welch.
What was the nature of leadership? How would anybody describe the quality, the style of leadership of Jack Welch?
There is little doubt that the style would be described as dictatorial.
Thank you very much.
I would go beyond, he thinks he's so smug when he thinks he's won. Yes, and I'll let you carry on in a second. What happened to the house that Jack built with his conglomerate?
It lasted for 30 years. Yeah? So here's the issue. If Jack Welch were to be CEO today, would he survive that kind of leadership style? Right? So I'll give you this much, that while the data is saying that we need to be autocratic, and it's clear, the whole world agrees that you need to be autocratic to get results, can you even be autocratic in today's day and age? Let's change the subject a little bit. Here's the dilemma. We live in the age of breakneck speed. We live in the age of total transparency where everybody is almost naked, everything is open. Leaders in particular are naked, but ordinary people are super empowered. We talked about this yesterday. In this age of empowerment, how is it even possible to be autocratic? So we are saying on the one hand that we need to be autocratic. You're saying, no, that's a bad idea. Maybe I'll concede a little bit and say, let's change it to, how can you even be autocratic if you wanted to be? So all of those people who raised your hands saying, yes, strong autocratic leadership is needed, question is, if that's true, how can you be? Because ordinary people, empowered with a voice that can be heard, will not let you. We've seen the Arab Spring. We've seen what happened to Elon Musk recently. We saw what happened to Travis Kalanick recently. So how can you be autocratic, yet the need for autocratic is very clear? So what do we do here?
Hang on. Let's just go back a couple of steps. You've managed to leap to the end here.
All right, we'll go back.
So you're saying the need to, well, let's just see, because I'm still not sure. I agree, strong leadership. And we can come further to discuss right at the end, if you may, Professor, this thin line between the two. But why do you say the power of the social media prevents autocracy?
Or strong leadership, or decisive leadership for that matter, because everybody can join any debate, because everybody is connected to everything these days, and people have, technology enables your voice to be heard. So if you try to build consensus, you'll grow old, because law of averages says that if everybody joins every debate, it's always going to be random, 50-50. So how can you lead by consensus anymore?
That assumes we ever did lead by consensus, by the way, but let's put that to one side.
Okay.
On this question, Elon Musk is a very good example, is he not, of exactly strong leadership, autocratic leadership in the face of social media pressure.
And he's had to give up his position as chairman.
No. With respect.
Okay, sir. Sir.
He has given up his position because of a foolish tweet which was in danger, well, that probably did break the SEC regulations.
So that's my point. Your bad behavior comes to light very, very quickly.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
And therefore,
if I hit you and you fall on the floor now,
that video is going to go so viral, and I'm going to become so famous so quickly.
Get your cameras ready, ladies and gentlemen.
Do I really want to be famous? No.
I take your point.
Yeah.
I accept your point.
Okay.
That we are in an entirely different environment.
That's the point, that we are in a very, very different environment. We are in an environment of nakedness and in an environment of speed. You have to work fast if you want results. Otherwise, somebody else will take your ideas. So how do we solve this dilemma? That's the challenge of 21st century
so the
leadership.
definition of dilemma is a choice of two equally unopposing or equally unappealing ideas.
Okay.
Neither side is good in a true dilemma.
Oh, both are good. Either which way.
Right.
So let's stay with yours. Okay.
In this situation, and I'm feeling I'm starting to lose, by the way. But don't worry, I will battle on to the bitter end. I always hate somebody who's got the facts on their side. In this situation, answer your own question, Professor. How can anyone be an autocratic leader in this environment? Because you still believe that autocracy or an autocratic leader is beneficial.
Yes. So what I'll do is I'll give you my logic, my reasoning, and then we'll see what people think, and we'll chat with everybody in the room. Is that okay? I believe this is a real dilemma, that even if you want to be autocratic, you cannot be because ordinary people won't let you. Yet, the data is in front of you. The answer, and Richard's going to hate this. He's going to hate it, but I hope he'll let me continue with my slide. The answer is positive autocracy. And now he's going to say,
I hate it! I hate it! I hate it! Now you can carry on.
I thought you'd say, I won. The answer is to practice positive autocracy. And this is hard. There is very fine balances embedded in these 5 keys to positive autocracy. Let me run through them, and some of them may even sound, contradicting one another. But let me run through them very, very quickly, and then we'll put the house to work, and then we'll take everybody's questions and see what Richard has to say. The first one is you need to earn the right to be autocratic. Only if you stand for what people believe to be the right values and a values-based purpose, remember yesterday, only then will they allow you to be autocratic. The people of Singapore allowed Lee Kuan Yew to be autocratic because deep down they believed that he would create a better future for the country. So if he says, don't chew gum, heck, we won't chew gum, we'll listen to him. Right? He earned that right, and you have to earn that right every day. It's not a one-time thing, and as Stephen Covey was saying, you have to give trust to get trust. So that's the first one, earning the right. The second one is you have to master the dance of the naked autocrat. Why naked autocrat? You're naked as a leader, and you're expected to be autocratic. Big problem. How do you do this? 1, you remain autocratic about your values and your purpose. The whole point in life is to land at what you think are the right values and the right purpose for yourself, right? And so you've thought about this carefully. You've thought about this carefully, slowly, deliberately. Now, stick with it. That's what you be autocratic about. There is no question about the values and the purpose, but at the same time, be compassionate at all times with people. Be humble at all times with people. Sounds like two opposites, but you have to master the dance. And again, Lee Kuan Yew was a champion of this. If there was a good reason why it's a no, it must remain a no, he said, but the man must be told politely, and the woman must be told even more politely. You lose nothing by being polite. So that's the second key, dance of the naked autocrat. The third one is, and here comes the crux, this is the main one. Create a culture, create a framework called freedom within the framework. Kavi spoke about this yesterday briefly, but didn't explain it. The point is, all organizations have a set of values that are beautiful posters down the hallway, that are beautiful on the website, right? And then they also have a lot of rules and policies and procedures. The bigger the organization gets, the more rules, the more policies, the more procedures. And before you know it, you have a culture which is like this. It's a bureaucracy. And we are saying, in the age of speed, instead of creating a culture based on rules, because rules get outdated before the ink dries on them, you need to create a culture where people live the values. If people live the values and do the right thing, now that's called freedom within the framework. Within that framework, so positive autocracy says the framework is non-negotiable, but within the framework, do the right thing. Okay? Number 4. Now here is what sounds contradictory. I said earlier, remain autocratic about your values and your purpose, but now I'm saying listen, learn, and reflect all the time. So the idea of the debate, you have to listen. We're not saying put blinkers on. We're not saying, close your eyes and ears. You still have to listen. You have to create a balance between how much you listen and how much you stay true to your values and your purpose. And that only as your leadership matures will you learn how to make that distinction. So that's number 4. And number 5, which has been spoken about by many a speaker in these 2 days, is forgive more often. You can be autocratic and you can still forgive, because forgiveness and compassion are the bedrocks of innovation. So these are the 5 keys of positive autocracy. The point is that we are saying that the schools of thought of leadership styles, which are sort of put you in one box or the other, and the more popular collaborative style, maybe the 21st century times have changed, and maybe positive autocracy is the thing for which the time has come, and this is how we go about it. And with that, I make my case again that you do need to be autocratic, because in the age of speed, you cannot continue to build consensus. You cannot continue to debate forever, because time is of the essence.
Time is of the essence. So let's dissect this.
Okay.
Sit.
All right. Say he's being autocratic. Yes. All right. What an effective leadership style. I'm doing exactly as he's saying.
Am I an autocrat or am I a strong leader? What is the difference between a strong leader? You can stand up now.
It's the same thing as far as I'm concerned. It is somebody who believes in what they say. It's what you were saying in the morning, Richard. Take a stance. A strong leader is somebody who takes a stance, and an autocratic leader is the same thing.
So what
a
is
positive autocrat and a strong leader is the same thing. Let's put it that way.
Well, now we're coming to some consensus.
Okay.
So,
I'll give you that.
yes. What is the difference between a positive, leave off the positive, between an autocrat and an autocrat and a dictator? What? Oh, over here. Did you hear me? Did you hear what I said?
Yes, yes,
Hang on
yes.
a second. But hold your thought. Yes, sir. Stand up. Your thought. Shout. What is the difference between the dictator and the autocratic leader?
So the line between positive autocracy, I know he told me to forget about the word positive. I'm not going to forget about the word positive. The line between positive autocracy and dictatorship is very thin. Very thin. And what happens is, as positive autocrats start to get successful, they cross the line ever so often and without realizing it. So that is where you need to continue. Key number 4 comes in. You really need to continuously listen, learn, and reflect while still being loyal to your values.
No, whoa. Listen, learn, and reflect is what you said.
Yes. Key number 4.
Where in all of that is checks and balances? Because if you're right, and I think you probably are, much as it pains me to admit it, if you are right, then the positive autocrat will have stuffed the board of directors with their own wannabes and yes men and women. And there will be no check upon that unbridled power.
Good point. And this is where governance comes in. Because leadership and governance are 2 sides of the same coin. When somebody crosses that thin line between positive autocracy because that is what drives results, and that's what the board wants, towards dictatorship, which starts doing harm. That's when the board needs to step in. And this is where, this big issue of whether the CEO should be the chairman of the board or not, that's the big difference between Asia and some of the Western countries. We believe not. This is where the board comes in. And so leadership and governance, the role of governance is to prevent that crossing of the line.
How often do you see a board of directors that is nothing more than a milquetoast designed for...
It happens a lot, but it shouldn't. That's the whole point.
It doesn't happen because the autocrat, the dictator, has managed to stuff the board.
And that is the huge difference between some of the governance models that we see in the West and the ones we see here. And also, for that matter, in the UK, where we separate the role of the CEO and the chairman, right?
The Cadbury Commission.
Exactly. And that should be, the board cannot be a bunch of cronies. That has been the problem historically. And as Asian companies, family-owned businesses are going global and are going public, they're going to have to think this through very carefully.
We've jumped a couple of steps.
Yes.
Let's go back to autocratic leadership. Why do you want to stick with this highly pejorative word, autocracy, which by its very definition, we all immediately recoil from?
So that we can have debates like this.
Excellent.
Because it brings home the point that you need to have strong, decisive leadership. When you are trying to create a better future, you are, as I said earlier today, by definition into uncharted territory. You're not going to win any popularity contest at that time. You're going to have a thicker skin if you believe in it. And that's the idea.
This crossing of the line into virtual dictatorship, I suggest to you, sir, it ends up as an inevitability that every autocratic leader eventually believes that they can walk on water.
True. Absolutely, I'll give you that one. Because that is the real danger of practicing positive autocracy. And unless somebody is very, very, very self-aware, and this is what Julia was talking about, that self-awareness, that power of the mind, that clarity is very, very important. You have to live life awake. But the fact is, anything worthwhile, you have to live on the edge a little bit. Not just a little bit. You have to live on the edge. And to do anything worthwhile, and this is the danger, that it does cross over, and that's where the difference, 21st century leaders will be defined by those who can stay on the right side of the line and not.
There's one big problem with your theory. Well, there's many problems with it, but we'll stick to one big problem. Where in all of this is the inclusiveness? Sorry? Oh, she agrees with me. We have somebody who agrees with me. I think
where is inclusive?
Where is the inclusiveness? And is the inclusiveness of which you talk nothing more than paying lip service?
Not at all. Freedom within the framework is where inclusiveness fits in. Okay? What we are saying is that as a leader, you've got to put out your values and your sense of purpose, that this is what I want to do through this organization or otherwise to the world. Put it out to the world. Those people who believe in your values and your purpose will follow you willingly. And those people, because they understand the values and purpose, you really don't need to micromanage them. You got to give them that freedom within the framework.
And those who don't agree with you?
They will not follow you. They can go elsewhere. Because
so your autocracy truly is, by your words, my way or the highway.
No, my autocracy says, my positive autocracy says, how much ever you try, not everyone is going to love you. That's a fact. How much ever you try, not everyone is going to love you. Some people are going to agree with your values and your purpose, and some not. And the point is to surround yourselves with people who do, and then change the world for better.
Oh, well, hang on a second. What about Theresa May? Theresa May, today, has managed to get a Brexit deal, but she's got it to the cabinet, many of whom will oppose it, but because of cabinet responsibility will follow it through. And she's now going to go to an EU Brussels summit and then have to railroad it through Parliament. Is she an autocratic leader? Bearing in mind her majority is non-existent.
I would go one step further. Is she a positive autocrat?
Is she?
You tell me.
No, you
let's ask the House.
All right. So let's go through. Right. Here we go. Let's go through some world leaders, shall we?
Go ahead.
Donald Trump. We'll give you hands up for positive autocrat. Hands up for strong leader. You see?
He's not a strong leader. He's a bully.
Hands up for bully. All right. Let's try someone. The Prime Minister.
Go on. The Malaysian Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister.
Just to make sure I've got my ticket out of the country. All right.
Let's ask the same question.
Right. I'm going to. And the reason why we're doing this in this way is because you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. And you can have all, you can have all these theories till the cows come home. But unless you put it into practice in real life, it is just a very nice afternoon in a theatre in Kuala Lumpur.
That's right.
So, the Prime Minister. All those who say he is a positive autocrat. All right, all those who say he has crossed the line. All those who say their view of his positive autocracy is different now than it was when he was in office before. Explain that.
I wasn't in Malaysia when he was. That's an unfair question. I wasn't in Malaysia at that time. But let's.
I'll explain it.
Okay, please do, and then we'll open up to some questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's simple. Because under your, I think, correct view of positive autocracy, the following leaders forgot all these things and crossed the line.
Yes.
Actually, the following leaders didn't just cross the line, they got in a bloody fast sports car and went completely across the line and continued going right the way down the road for the next 45 miles.
And those are?
Which?
You said the following leaders. Which ones? I thought you were going to give us some examples.
Right, time for some questions. All right. We can sing, we can dance, or we can take your questions. Come on, questions.
And this time, you just raise your hand and ask the question rather than, we're not doing it through the app. Are we doing it through the app, Michael? Oh, we are. You can do it through the app as well.
Come on, it's much better if we ask questions here to
There's a hand up there in the middle.
Yes!
Right above the clock.
All right.
Mike.
Hi, Rajeev.
No.
Sorry, I think this one is going to be for you. These last couple of days, you've advocated for freeing up people in terms of leads to maximizing productivity and performance.
So giving people freedom, yes.
Yes, and yet you advocate for autocracy. Isn't autocracy about maximizing rather than minimizing control?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I got caught between, I forgot what I said yesterday and what I said today, is it? Now, how do I wriggle myself out of this one? So, you are right in saying that autocracy sounds like it is about maximizing control, but the idea is freedom within the framework. You create an organization, you create a culture in which the spirit of the law prevails, in which people live the values that we think are going to make us successful. That part is autocratic, that part is non-negotiable, but within that framework of values and purpose, pretty much give people the freedom to do what they want to do.
Are you happy with his answer?
So, Richard, you were talking about Satya Nadella earlier, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Satya Nadella says that, I don't want my employees to say that I work for Microsoft. He says the day I believe my leadership would have made a difference is when people say, Microsoft works for me. So we said, explain, what does that mean? And he said, people must bring their passion to change the world with them to work. if you have a passion to change the world, and use Microsoft as the framework, as the platform to deliver that passion to the world. So he wants to create that freedom within the framework platform that people who want to change the world say, I don't work for Microsoft, Microsoft works for me, I use the platform. So I actually see no disconnect between positive autocracy and giving people freedom. But you can't let people just run around with absolutely no boundaries, because then there is no organization, then there's no purpose.
Isn't positive, well, we'll take a question. I'll come. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm having problem with this.
Oh, well, never mind.
Word, this word autocratic.
Yes.
Because it straight away connotes negative, no matter how you. But the positive sort of softens it.
Right.
I prefer the narrative to be firm leadership.
Okay.
This is my view.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. Now, the only reason we do this, as I said earlier, is to raise this debate because, as Richard was saying earlier, you have to take a stance as a leader, and if you don't take a stance, you're not a leader. And because we call it autocratic, we can have this debate. Somebody in Zurich, Switzerland, the other day told me you should replace the word with aristocracy.
The dictionary defines our autocratic.
Oh my God, I knew that was going to happen. Listen, we settled the debate now. Now shut that down.
Tyrannical, despotic, domineering.
But that's autocratic. That's not positive autocratic.
So
let's take the questions.
So that means a nice, despotic, domineering leader.
That means somebody who, according to a wise man called Richard Quest, who told me, is somebody who takes a stance about values and purpose.
Never heard of him. Let's move on. This nice lady over here. And who else would like to ask a question? Yeah, one over there. One over there. Oh, yeah, we're going now. We're cooking with gas. Go on.
This question is actually for both of you.
Oh.
Okay. No, because we see, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me autocratic leaders are very narcissistic, high ego characteristics. Where's the remorse? Those who have been ousted out of their own companies, where's the remorse? Will it come?
Why should there be remorse? Remorse for what?
Go on.
Well, I think, and you add in narcissism. Is it a precondition, do you think, of strong leadership to be narcissistic? Rajeev?
Not at all. Not at all. Which is the whole point about positive autocracy. And autocracy has all the negative connotations to it, and it is negative. It's despotic. It's all those things that you're saying, ma'am. But positive autocracy, that's the whole point. You can call it firm leadership, you can call it aristocracy, you call it whatever you want, but the essence is those things that I had up there, those 5 keys.
Questions coming thick and fast now. Yes, sir.
All right, so I had a question. So you were talking a lot about how autocracy is bad, and Rajeev, you were saying how when you have a very autocratic leader and let's say people in the company disagree with the values, they can go, right, or do business elsewhere. But my question is, when you have a positive autocracy, and let's say someone in the company shares a different worldview than you, maybe, for example, in Malaysia, we're fairly more conservative compared to UK and America, and let's say we work in an American company, but we don't share some of the values and we disagree, and you choose to maybe let us go, and how is that? That may seem positively autocratic because you have certain values that you uphold, but you're silencing the views of people who disagree with you.
I think I understand that.
Yes.
You want to go first?
Oh, no, after you, Professor.
Yeah, Professor. When it comes to personal values, somebody asked a question in one of the earlier speaker sessions. What happens when my personal values are at odds with the organization's values? Wasn't that with Richard's morning session, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's very clear. As an individual, you have a set of personal values, right? You should work for organizations that uphold are similar to your values, otherwise you will be unhappy, right?
Yes.
That's basically it. If the organizational values are diametrically opposite to yours, that they don't let you sleep at night, you gotta quit. You gotta go somewhere else.
That's the harsh reality.
That is the harsh reality.
And that is the harsh reality, my son.
All right. So you agree on something. That's great.
Yes.
Oh, no.
That's great.
Right, good, thank you. The lady who's got the microphone.
Yeah. So
Stand
here.
up.
Yeah.
And then
okay.
next the gentleman. Yes.
So you speak about, the open source era, you speak about autocratic leadership in the same breath.
Yes.
But aren't open source systems and movements leaderless? I mean, you want to talk
Say
about...
that again.
Isn't it leaderless? We live in this
Open
new
source
era.
system.
Yeah, open source systems, aren't they leaderless? Isn't that the point?
That's a great question, which is that open source by its very nature is leaderless. The Linux system, as opposed to a Windows system or an Oracle system, is open source and there is no leader. Hobbyists anywhere in the world can create updates, right? And nobody and everybody maintains the Linux system. The Arab Spring, there was no clear leader. Open source movement, right? Cryptocurrency, we don't even know who created it. Is that guy, that Japanese name, one person or one people? We don't know.
Right, hang on.
Sorry?
You're right. We don't know who started blockchain
Right.
or Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
So where then does autocracy in terms of leadership as it relates to that come into it? Or is it only for those who use it thereafter?
So that's what I was coming to. So it sounds like whether it's Linux system, whether it's movements like the Arab Spring, whether it's cryptocurrency, these open source phenomena are leaderless, right? And then her question is, why are you talking about not just leadership, the need for leadership, but that too autocratic, strong leadership, right? It's a very legitimate question. As I think about this, initially it sounds like they are two totally opposites. But as you think deeply, you realize that open source systems, open source movements fizzle out. They absolutely don't last. The only time Linux, right, has been around since the 1990s, correct? What's the market share of Linux? 4%. Right? And even to get from 0 to 4%, it happened when a company called Red Hat said, we will be taking care of all things Linux, pay us a fee, don't buy the free system, don't take the free system, pay us a fee and we'll bring you all the updates, we'll bring you all the support. When they filled the leadership vacuum, that's when it got some traction. Arab Spring, what happened 5 years later? You have even worse dictatorships in certain countries, it fizzled out. Right? And why after 10 years have cryptocurrencies not taken off? Because of lack of trust, because of lack of leadership maybe. So in the open source era, actually, you need more stronger leadership than in
But it just depends on who defines that leadership, who defines who becomes the leader.
Sure, it's the people who decide who becomes the leader.
Oh.
You have to earn the right, remember?
Next question.
Rajeev, you mentioned that the positive autocracy is needed in a fast-paced, in managing a fast-paced world today. But would you also add another dimension when we choose and to decide whether that actually is effective? Would you consider how developed people are? How developed civil society, let's say in managing a country.
All right.
Right?
What's the question?
I'm coming to the questions.
Oh, good.
So let's look at China. Would you say that in managing China as such a country, you do need some high level of autocracy? But if you look at more developed, where civil society is much more developed, then you probably would
less?
Have.
Right.
How about you take that one?
So the question, as I understand it, is in a more developed society, do you need less or more autocracy?
Mm-hmm. That's the question.
I believe so.
You see, you're the one who interviews all the political leaders around the world. Your thoughts on this one?
I think it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters. I think if you're right, and maybe I might just be, no, I'm not yet, then it doesn't matter, because you're talking about universal truths.
I'm talking about creating a better future for the country. And I believe that...
For the country or the company?
Sorry, in this case, he's talking about political leadership, right? So in that case, it has to be for the country.
I don't think you can talk about, I don't think, you're so comparing apples and oranges in those two different environments.
They're not that different, agreed. Agreed.
No, they are, I'm saying.
You mean company leadership and
No,
country
no, no.
leadership?
Between China's leadership and the rest of us.
Yeah, so that's the point I was making, that if the objective is to create a better future,
Right?
using the right values and a values-based purpose, then in the age of speed, whether it's a developed economy or an underdeveloped economy, you still need positive autocracy.
We've got so many questions and we're running out of time. Go ahead. Your big moment.
Sorry.
We have about 7 more minutes.
Okay.
Hopefully not to take that one question. Go on.
No.
So this is more of food for thought, I guess. On your slide with all the green, with all the countries, right? Most of them were saying that we want autocracy. But if you look at the chart again, the countries like Netherlands and Denmark.
Can we put that chart back up again, please?
See, those countries are the ones that are the happiest countries, and they're like 50-50, like half of them say autocracy, half of them not. So should we be using these countries as, should we follow these countries because they're the happiest, like after what Dr. Kim said?
Well,
Maybe we should get Dr. Kim to answer the question.
Dr. Kim. Where
Your
are you,
thoughts on
Doctor?
that, yeah.
Come and join us. Why should we be the only ones having to defend this? No. All right. What was your question?
Most of the countries are
Yes.
saying autocracy, but should we be using the happiest countries as a role model for us?
All right. So
Because they're
got it.
50-50.
So the Netherlands happy, Denmark very happy, Belgium not so happy. Most of the time. Should we be using them as barometers? Microphone.
If you ask how are those countries measured in terms of their happiness, and some of the indicators are things like trust in the government. So the level of trust in the government is also a reflection of how well you rank as a happiness country. So I would have expected that countries that have a lot of trust in their government would be the ones that would be more likely to say autocracy, let's go for it. But on the other hand, these are countries that have very highly functioning democracies where people feel that they have the right to voice. They're very active in their participation in local governance. So I think both of those things are happening at the same time. It would be interesting to see in a country that has very low trust in the government how they would answer a question like that. And I'm looking
Such
at
as
the
the
slide.
United Kingdom. I'm just saying. Another question. Stay where you are, Doctor. Right. Go on. Be brief. Be quick. Be hurried.
Okay. I would like to ask towards Rajeev. We have the question number 6? Yeah. On the question number 6, I see where is the line between being autocratic leadership and dictatorship? The line is very blurred, and we can see before this in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, Mobutu. He became a so-called positive autocratic leader for imposing and being very decisive to march the country forward. But then, after that, he falls into the dictatorial trap.
Which is what?
Which is just like what you said just now. He passed across being positive autocratic into being a dictator. Now, the question is, if you let this positive autocratic leadership to go on air and let other leaders to use this will be a license for leaders to become dictator in the future.
Except those who cross over from positive autocracy to dictatorship probably needed very little help to do so. They were probably well on the way. You know, I remember a very famous story, an article in the Times in London when Margaret Thatcher ceased to be Prime Minister. Yes, there's probably about 3 of us in the room old enough to remember her as Prime Minister. And you're one of them. But afterwards the article said, you could say the same about the Prime Minister, she got used to the traffic lights always being green. Yes. That's the difference with leadership. Do we have somebody on this side? Nope. Over to you, sir. Oh, gosh.
I'll make just one more point on that.
Course,
and that
please.
is that I keep saying this again, the leadership is a responsibility that is not easy at all. In today's open source era of speed, you need to be positively autocratic, but the danger of crossing the line is exactly that that you get used to all the lights being green. And this is where leaders need to really remain self-aware, really have to have a self-audit mechanism with which they are able to stay grounded. And that's the big danger. You are living on the edge with
Our
this.
contradictions are being pointed out to us.
Okay?
Xi Jinping abolished presidential term limits. Arguably, the Congress did, but it's one of the same. So has the Chinese premier, because arguably crossed the line from positive autocracy to outright dictator?
This is a great question that we should put to vote in the House. Those people who think yes, by doing that, he has crossed the line.
Xi is now a dictator?
By crossing that line, by doing that, he's crossed the line.
How many think that he is still a positive autocrat? How many are doing business in China and are scared to answer that question?
And how many are not thinking at all, because more than half the room didn't even raise their hand on either side.
Right. Final questions.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I hope
Okay.
that isn't a sheaf of
Okay,
paper.
so just a little bit of response towards the debate. I believe that both of the debates argue in vacuum. There's no context because you're not talking about developed or underdeveloped. There's no premise in it because everyone is cherry picking. So this is my overall of the debate, right? So in terms of the autocracy, in terms of the
hang on, whoa.
Yes. What should we do here now?
So that's why it's quite messy.
I think we've just been told we're doing a shit job.
Yeah, looks like it. Looks like it.
All right.
Okay, back to my
your,
question.
Having insulted us, where is your question?
Okay, back to my questions. I think.
Phew, there is a question.
Okay, there's two questions actually.
No, one.
Okay, I'll go that way. Okay, first to Rajeev, right? Understanding that the degree of autocracy is needed, right? So my question is, what is the degree of autocracy to ensure that positive autocracy is there? I think that the discussion should be there.
Yes.
Second,
No.
Because there's two more people
4
below
minutes,
you.
13
behind
seconds
you.
to go.
Yeah.
Sorry. What is the degree of autocracy needed to enjoy blah, 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 blah?
for developed and underdeveloped
Thank
countries.
you.
So leadership, we said, is an art, not science, and neither is it mathematics, right? So I don't have a formula or a score to tell you that this much is positive, this much is negative. There is no such thing. It's an art, not a science. As leaders, looking into our own values and our purpose, we have to use our judgment. That's what the moral compass that Richard was talking about this morning is. That's what leadership is all about. Next one, please.
Thank you. Over here. No, we're over here, please. Over
Okay.
here. Yes, sir.
Okay, I think my name is Pwan. My question relates to the survey. It's more how you define autocratic leader or democratic leader. If the question is more direct, in those countries, whether they would select autocrat leader or democratic leader, what would be the outcome?
I think that's an interesting question because what he's saying is, if you frame, let's take Theresa May or Macron or even Putin. Well, maybe not. You could frame it as being both a democratic leader and an autocratic leader. The two are not mutually exclusive,
They're not.
are they?
Positive autocracy bridges the line. Absolutely.
Fine.
Yeah.
Next.
All right.
So, Rajeev, I feel like you're saying that making an autocratic decision is the same as making an executive decision. But for me, what I think is that the latter means making an informed decision where you're listening to people and taking into consideration their ideas.
Yes.
And so
No,
I think that if we're assuming that they're different, then leaders like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, if we're saying they're autocratic, that their ideas upon conception manifested because they didn't even listen to what other people had to say. But I don't think that that's true, and I think that people can listen to others, iterate on ideas, and make executive decisions, but that doesn't mean they're making an autocratic decision.
Welcome to positive autocracy. Thank you. You just beautifully defined positive autocracy.
You are
That's exactly right. You're absolutely right.
You're infuriating. Right, I think that's, I think we're, are we going to take these last questions? You be the judge. Any more questions or not? Yes. Is that, you see, I think that was a bit democratic of me. Are they good questions?
With due respect, both of you guys have to, for example, give up, and otherwise you will be bombarded with the questions. We should go ahead with the questions or not?
Go ahead with your question.
All right. Okay, what are the real world examples of the leaders, for example, who started with the autocratic leadership and ended up as for example, dictator leaders?
The history is littered with them. The big danger of positive autocracy is that it is very easy to cross the line. Many examples.
Good example, Churchill. Brilliant leader.
Yeah, absolutely.
But arguably a total autocrat and verging on dictator, whom the British public threw out in the first election after the Second World War.
And by the way, in the open source era, because everybody has a voice, we don't have to worry because the people will throw out leaders who cross the line and remain on the other side of the line. It's a matter of time. Now people say, no, why is Trump still there? It's a matter of time. The time taken for bad behavior to be punished by the public is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. It will not take 10 years for the next Enron to be found out. It will not take 40 years for the next Bernie Madoff to be found out. It'll be much faster.
No, it'll morph into something else.
Which is?
I don't know. We'll find out what happens.
Excuse me. What are the benefits of starting autocracy when it ended up with the dictatorship?
It's not. That's not the way it should end. So I'm agreeing
because
with you.
the many examples that you're saying, we have given like many examples in
which is the challenge of practicing positive autocracy. If you want results, you're going to have to use positive autocracy, but there is a real danger that you'll slip on the other side and create more harm.
So I'm going to give you the final question. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to give you the final. Actually, this one gentleman, but then I'm going to give you the question that takes what this gentleman just said. Go on, you're last. You get the. No, sir, you had a question. Your turn next.
Oh.
Your final question.
All right. It's called Richard. Do you smoke?
I'm sorry?
Do you smoke?
Did you want to go outside for a quick?
Yeah.
I gave up 10 years ago.
If you have to make a decision regarding these tobacco companies, would you engage in an economic discussion how to reduce it, or you ban it straight? Put a ban to it.
Looks like
it's for you.
You know? Go on, say it again.
Yeah.
What was it?
No, you have to make a decision regarding tobacco companies.
Sorry?
Tobacco companies.
Yes, tobacco company.
Yes. Would you engage in an economic discussion and reduce smoking, or would you ban it outright?
That's a societal question. It's not for me. I'm not a leader. No. My final question to you, sir.
Okay, come. No, sir, that means a dangerous question coming up. Whenever he says sir, it's dangerous. Go ahead.
If you are right, and I'm not convinced you are, is it worth it? Is autocratic leadership worth all the risks of dictatorship that can follow? Is it something that you should go for? Or is it something to be guarded against?
Autocratic leadership is not worth it. Positive autocratic leadership is worth it, but you have to live life awake because you are trying to create breakthrough results. You're living on the edge. You have self-awareness, self-audit is the only answer. Otherwise, the market will punish you.
How many positive autocrats do you know who haven't turned into rampant dictators to be removed in scandal or grief?
Lots of them, and there are many. Most of them are unsung heroes. They're not famous people. There are people in large corporations. There are people in NGOs. There are people in government that do this, and they are still very cognizant of staying on the right side of the line, but yet incredibly strong, incredibly decisive. As far as values and vision is concerned, they're very, very clear. So lots of examples, except that they're not celebrated. Oh, if you get what if you're creating a better future, of course it's worth it.
Final question to the audience.
This gentleman has been
no,
standing
you want more questions?
Sorry, okay.
No,
sorry,
are we doing more?
He's been standing for a while, apparently, so.
No, I think he wanted to go to the toilet.
Okay. Okay, so my question to both of you.
Yes.
Okay, so we have been debating on style of leadership, right?
Yes.
And most of the examples there that you were quoting related to the leadership in political field. Okay, so now we are talking about the business field. In a business field, when a situation of leadership comes, when a question of decision making comes, at the top level, the most accountable person for decision is the CEO, right? So in that case, if there is any failure, it's not anybody else is subject to question, but CEO is taken care of and he's fired if necessary. See the issue in US or UK or anywhere, even in Asian countries, if a company fails to earn the required earning, if it is reflected in the stock exchange, the value goes down,
Sure.
so finally who is taken and accounted for? So in that situation, you say positive leadership or autocratic leadership, there are theory X, Y, Z, so many things are
No,
there
no,
in
hang on.
leadership.
Yeah, but hang
so
on.
now I want to count down to one thing, that is in business, the final result is that how much you have earned.
No, hang on.
Of course, there are governance issues and other things.
You're right, sir. You're right. But unfortunately, you have jumped 15 steps.
Yeah.
You've immediately gone to the moment of extremist and disaster. You've immediately gone to the point where the company's losing money, and therefore you fire the CEO. I think what Rajeev is saying, perhaps, forgive me paraphrasing if I may, what Rajeev is saying is, if the system works correctly, and I'm not sure it always will, you've dealt, the positive autocrat shouldn't get to the position where the company's losing money and has to be fired.
In my opinion, it
Why,
is
are
the
you about to be
situation.
fired?
In my opinion, it is the situation that will lead you what you should act like. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, very good.
I think we're done.
So let's bring it.
Bring it together. I'm
Final
going to
thoughts.
let you finish.
Okay.
Because
No more final thoughts from you?
Sorry?
No more final thoughts from you?
Oh, my final thought is I
Yes.
think you're wrong. No, actually, I think there's a very valid point under what you're saying. I think it's an extremely important point under what you're saying. The reality is, you call it positive autocracy. You call it strong leaders. Now I'm going to finish with one question to the audience and then leave you to finish if I may.
Okay, sounds good.
How many of you in this room want to be a positively autocratic leader? How many people of you want to be a strong leader? How many of you put up your hands twice?
There you go.
I'll leave you to finish.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A big round of applause for Richard Quest one more time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.